In the heart of old Boston, on a narrow street that most people walked past without noticing, there stood a small, aging shoe shop. The paint on the walls was peeling. The windows were dusty, and the wooden sign above the door looked like it had been there forever. It simply said, "Shoe Repair." Inside the shop worked an old man named Frank. He was in his 70s. His hands were worn from years of labor. His movements were slow, but careful. And his eyes, always focused, always patient. Frank had spent his entire life repairing shoes, day after day, year after year, while the world changed outside. His work never changed. Across the street, new shoe stores opened one after another. Bright lights, loud music, stylish designs. People loved them. They were fast, they were modern, they were exciting. Frank's shop was none of those things. One afternoon, a man from the neighborhood stepped into Frank's store and looked around. "Frank," he said, "why don't you sell new shoes? You could make a lot more money." Frank smiled, but shook his head gently. "I don't sell shoes," he said. "I only repair them." The man frowned. "But no one cares about repairing anymore. People just buy new ones." Frank didn't argue. He simply picked up a worn-out shoe from his table and continued stitching, because he understood something many people forget. Not everything valuable is loud, not everything meaningful is new. Sometimes the things that last are the ones people overlook. Juan Colde, a young man, walked into the shop. He looked upset. In his hand, he carried a pair of expensive leather shoes. "They broke after 1 month," he said. "I went back to the store, but they said it's not their problem." His voice carried both anger and disappointment. Frank took the shoes without saying much. He examined them carefully. He pressed the sole. He checked the seams. He looked at the edges. Then he had. "I can fix them," he said calmly. "Come back tomorrow." The young man hesitated. He looked around the small, old shop, unsure, but he had no better option, so he left. The next day he returned. Frank handed him the shoes. The young man stared in disbelief. They looked brand new. The sole had been replaced with stronger leather. The stitching was perfect. Clean, precise, the shoes felt better than before. "How much do I owe you?" the young man asked. $8, Frank replied. The young man blinked. $8, that's it. This work is incredible. You should charge more. Frank smiled softly. "My father was a shoemaker too," he said. Then he added slowly, "He taught me something I never forgot." Frank looked at the young man and said, "A good pair of shoes should help a person walk further." He paused, then continued, "I don't repair shoes to make money. I repair them so people can walk with confidence." The young man didn't know what to say. Those words were simple, but they felt powerful, because deep inside, he knew it was true. The moment you stop chasing profit, you start building purpose. The young man thanked Frank and left, but the lesson stayed with him. Days turned into months. Months turned into years. Life moved on. The young man worked hard. He faced failures. He made difficult choices. There were times when he wanted to take shortcuts, times when it would have been easier to choose money over values. But every time he looked at his shoes, he remembered Frank. He remembered the quiet shop. He remembered those words, and slowly, those words began to shape his life. Success is built in small steps. Years later, that young man became someone important. He entered public service. He became a leader in Boston, a man trusted by many, a man whose decisions affected thousands of lives. But no matter how high he rose, he never forgot where he started, and he never forgot Frank. On the day of one of his biggest speeches, he stood backstage, preparing himself. He looked down at his feet. He was wearing the same pair of shoes. Still strong, still reliable, still carrying him forward. When he walked onto the stage, the audience applauded. He began his speech. He spoke about responsibility, about trust, about doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. Then, in the middle of his speech, he paused. He looked at his shoes, then back at the audience. "These shoes," he said, were repaired by an old man many years ago. The audience listened quietly. He charged me only $8, he continued, but what he gave me was worth much more. He took a breath. He taught me that the most important thing in life is not how much you sell. It is what you choose to stand for. Silence filled the room, because everyone understood this was not just about shoes, that this was about integrity, about purpose, about staying true. Sometimes the greatest strength is patience. Frank never tried to compete with big stores. He never followed trends. He never changed his path just because the world changed around him. And yet, he changed lives. Even today, that small shoe shop still stands, quiet, humble, almost invisible. But on the door hangs a simple wooden sign: "Fix shoes, fix hearts." Because what Frank really fixed was not just broken souls. He fixed trust. He fixed values. He fixed something inside people. The world may reward speed, but it remembers sincerity. The world may celebrate success, but it respects integrity. So if you ever feel like what you do is too small, too slow, or not important enough, remember Frank. You don't need a big stage to make a big difference. You don't need to follow the crowd to succeed. Sometimes, the greatest impact comes from doing one simple thing, with honesty, every single day. The moment you choose purpose over profit, your life begins to change. And maybe, just maybe, you will leave behind something that lasts longer than success. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more motivational stories. Because the right story at the right time can change your life.